Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1327, written by TH Dan 7. The Island of Inexplicable Silence. It was a nice and sunny day by the sea at our summer cabin. My cousin and I took my grandpa's boat and went exploring a bunch of islands nearby. We live in a place with a bunch of archipelagos. After a while, we got to this island a little further out. We cruised along the shoreline when we noticed a small opening, just big enough for our boat to fit through. It was definitely man-made, so we decided to check it out. After about 15 meters or so, sorry Americans, I'm European, we arrive at the pond, and it's almost perfectly round. At the other side of the opening or canal, we see an old gazebo that's barely standing. We get to the middle of the pond, and then we notice it. Every sound we heard earlier has gone quiet. No seagulls, no wind, no nature noises. The only thing we can hear is the sound of us rowing. I can only describe the lack of sound as thick silence. It was weird. Of course, the sun vanishes behind some clouds, and suddenly the pond seems extremely dark, although it was very shallow. We were trying to joke about ghosts coming to get us, but both of us were clearly nervous. Out of nowhere, a plank in the gazebo falls from the roof and lands with a loud bang on the floor. We nearly jump out of our skins. We both decide it's time for us to go, turn the boat around and start rowing. We were almost at the opening again when we heard what sounded like groaning and thumping coming from the gazebo. Keep in mind, I was facing the gazebo while rowing. I saw something move behind it, but I couldn't make out what it was because I was panicking. When we got out, back to the regular world, everything was normal. Wind, birds, natural sounds. Even the sun came back. We have no idea what the hell happened back there, and it could very well have been some animal, but that whole place felt wrong. And the wind didn't stop because of a nearby predator. Someday, we will go back again and see what happens. Case notes file 1327. The Island of Inexplicable Silence. I don't recommend pressing your luck with a return visit. There are areas of the world that are more in flux than others. I think this is one of those areas where entering it, you're covered by a kind of metaphysical shield that doesn't enable the outside world to permeate through. It's not a physical barrier, and who knows if this kind of thing is even stable. I wouldn't test it. There are a lot of daredevils out there, and I guess through them we might learn more information. So there's that. Bonus file written by Corrupt173. The Two-Tone and the Unknown. Did an art show in Coventry, UK, at an old building which used to be where the ska band and the specials rehearsed in the damp, graffiti-stained basement. If you are from Coventry or was ever in the two-tone ska movement, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was late November or early December, and I was in a busking band playing Christmas songs while people came to look at the installations inside. That night, a paranormal experience team was holding a free session after the event, so myself and my girlfriend tagged along. We are not firm believers in ghosts, ghouls, and demons, but we like horror movies, and have never done one of these, so it sounded fun. We explored the whole building, feeling for cold spots and energy. This place is massive, with 3 or 4 floors, and upstairs is all art studios, so they are vast and untreated, especially sonically. It was all going well, and us and the team had decided that one of the rooms upstairs had a weird feeling about it, and of course, we hadn't been into the basement yet. At this point, we split the group in half, into 2 teams. One team would go into the studio upstairs that had a weird feeling, and the other down into the basement. We would then swap later. We were in the basement first. We were led down the stairs and armed only with torches, beginning to explore the cold, dark, wet rooms. The team told us it used to be a youth center, so they tried holding hands and talking to the space to see if they got any response. All quiet, nothing. It was windy that night, so we'd get the occasional leaves sweeping past the window, but generally it was a disappointing response. During one of these communication exercises, I was drawn to a long dark corridor that had small rooms on the right and led to a stairway on the left. I didn't separate from the group, but something kept me looking back into the dark void. After a few attempts and a few jokes made about the lack of activity, it was at this point that we decided to swap the teams around. As people made for the door at the far end of the room, I took one more look into this corridor where I saw or thought I saw or imagined a young chap wearing blue jeans, white trainers, and white t-shirt. He was blonde and had a noticeable silver chain around his neck that he wore over his shirt as a sort of statement. I can still remember his stance and everything. It was surreal and spooked me a bit. At the time, I convinced myself that my brain had just filled in a space. I was told I was a use hunter, so my brain, desperate for a result after a few hours in the dark, just put a young man in the darkness. I thought about bringing it up at the end, that we should talk about our findings, but I wasn't sure if I would. We went upstairs, which had a few noises answering our responses. They could have been the sound of radiators or old pipes, but it was fun and eerie at the same time. We all met up again at the main reception room downstairs to conclude the evening. The usual speeches of, "Join us again, discount, blah blah blah," was most of this, but just before leaving, they asked for any final thoughts. I said to myself that what I saw was probably nothing. It was late, let's all get home kind of attitude. That wasn't until a middle-aged lady, one of the other group, said that she was sure she saw a tall chap in white downstairs. I tuned into every word. He had white shoes and was just peeking around the corner, in the basement, by that long stairway. She continued to say that she wouldn't have noticed him if it wasn't for a silver necklace shining around his neck just as she was leaving. I didn't tell anyone that night what I saw, not even my girlfriend. There was no way the mediums or paranormal team could have constructed this for a result while we swapped locations. That was a creepy day for me. I haven't had a chance to go back there since, but do park along the road when visiting shops nearby, and am often reminded of the figure in the dark corridor and how a stranger described the exact same thing from a separate group. Question for the bonus file. Two-Tone and the Unknown. Important to point out here that this could have been planned out by the group nevertheless, if both the old woman and the young chap were in on it. I don't typically make assumptions about fakery like that, but I also don't think it's wise to discount it entirely. Because some people do that. I mean, especially when money is involved. You have to be suspect of that. For me, reading this, the lack of a cold spell, or any sort of electrical distortion either, further indicates trickery by the paranormal tour guides, or points to another possibility, maybe. That spirits can only cause distortions either through intentionally willing it, or if they're draining energy from the surrounding area. If the latter, my guess is it's like a battery. Eventually they're all topped up and don't need any more. Maybe that's the case here. This young chap was fully charged. And now time for the quote of the day. Holding onto anger is like grasping onto hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Buddha. And you know, maybe the person you throw it at also gets burned, but is it worth it? You're getting burned, they get burned, maybe you burn the house down too. Just try not to fight fire with fire. Maybe sometimes it's unavoidable, but I think tamping down those instincts is a better, wiser course of action over the course of a lifetime. If you let anger fester, it's just going to cause havoc for everyone else and for many people that you love, that you don't intend to get harmed. They're going to get caught in the crossfire. Never a good thing. In fact, if you have anger, the best thing to do is just move away from whatever is causing you that anger. Go do something else. You move somewhere else if you have to. Sometimes it's the best course of action. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.